Hi, this is Morley, and this is the M-Wire. Well, folks, I don't know if you remember this, but last spring, Russia had quite the military buildup on the Ukrainian border. I was reporting on it for a while. Things were really tense. Well, I've been watching this situation for, I guess close to a week now, and we're kind of back where we were. I mean, Russia essentially has 90,000 troops on the Ukrainian border, and they could potentially invade the Ukraine and take it over. Now, the Ukraine is essentially cozying up to the Allies for obvious reasons. It wouldn't be much of a war, if you will, if Russia wanted to take over the Ukraine, because Russia is much superior as far as military power and whatnot is concerned. It wouldn't even be a challenge for them to take over the country in all actuality. Now, the Ukraine is trying to join NATO, as they would obviously protect them in case that did happen and Russia did attack, but they're essentially cozying up to the Allies, the EU, the United States, and whatnot. But at this time, it's getting very tense on the Russian-Ukrainian border. Vladimir Putin could potentially decide to invade the country and take it over, and he's probably gambling and betting that the United States would do absolutely nothing if that occurred. One thing I've noticed about Russia, since they've developed these hypersonic missiles that they have, these things could reach a target in the United States within 6 minutes, and they're uninterceptable. You can't shoot them down. They would reach their target if they were deployed. As well as Russia now has Poseidon missiles, which are basically nuclear warheads that just swim around the ocean all on their own, and they could detonate those at any time. The Allies wouldn't even try and intercept one of those if they found one swimming in the ocean because, as I said, Russia could simply detonate it if they knew it was being tampered with or trying to be captured or anything like that. So since the development of these weapons, I've noticed that Vladimir Putin has quite a bit of flex, if you know what I mean. He's not exactly shy to do things anymore, and this situation on the Ukrainian border is intensifying as we speak. Great Britain has just gave the Ukraine 1.7 billion American dollars, or 1 million pounds, I believe, to buffer its defenses, and Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, has essentially told Putin that if he invades Ukraine, that would be a big mistake. So that's pretty threatening language, if you ask me. But this situation certainly is intensifying, folks. I'm just going to give you a brief article just so you have an idea of what's really happening there now and kind of where we're at, but I think conflict could very well be inevitable at this point. One thing that Vladimir Putin knows is that he does not want the Ukraine as a part of NATO because he doesn't want to deal with NATO forces. If he is to invade the Ukraine, he will do it before the Ukraine can actually join NATO. But I'm going to get into this article, folks, so you have at least a synopsis of what's really happening. I'm going to be reporting on this as, the events transpire. Obviously, as you well know, I'm certainly reporting on La Palma, but this is getting to be a serious situation as well in between Russia and the Ukraine. The latest buildup of Russian troops near the Russo-Ukrainian state border suggests that the Kremlin is mulling various options, including a potential military invasion of Ukraine. That's according to a statement by Ukrainians' mission to the OSCE, voiced during a meeting of the OSCE Forum for Security Cooperation in Vienna on Wednesday, Ukrainiform's own correspondent reported. This is just more than a military buildup, the Ukrainian delegation said, adding there is deterioration in terms of Russia's demonstration of readiness to deploy troops and equipment along the Ukrainian border, as well as in terms of Russian leadership considering various options, including a potential military invasion of Ukraine. It was pointed out that after completing in the second half of 2021 their large-scale exercises near the state border of Ukraine, Russia only claimed they withdrew their forces from the border areas. So as you can see from this so far, folks, Ukraine is very worried that Russia is just going to start rolling tanks and military equipment over the border and take it over, essentially. This is very real. Like, they would not be cozying up to the EU and the United States and NATO at this time unless they thought this was a real threat, because deep in their hearts they know that they are no military match for Russia. It was only the servicemen who returned to their bases, the Ukrainian delegation stressed, adding that the military hardware such as tanks, armored vehicles, and Iskander missile systems remain near the Ukrainian border. Delegations of the OSCE participated states and informed that Russia had so far deployed more than 92,000 troops in areas close to the border with Ukraine. Not only is Russia demonstrating military aggression, Russia's military exercises, energy crisis in Europe, and the use of migrants as weapons on Belarus border with Poland and Lithuania should be seen as elements of Russia's hybrid war against Europe and the Euro-Atlantic community, the Ukrainian delegation stressed. So essentially, from the last military buildup in the spring, they more or less left a lot of the equipment there, and just to resume this exercise at a later time, which is obviously now. They have 92,000 troops at the Ukrainian border, folks. That is very serious. That is a lot of troops just getting their order from Putin to move. They also reaffirmed Ukraine's commitment to peace and security in Europe and their country's readiness to jointly defend principles that are fundamental for Ukraine and the Euro-Atlantic community. As Ukrinform reported earlier, the Washington Post on October 30 broke the news of the buildup of the Russian troops on the border with Ukraine. Citing sources in the United States and the EU, the newspaper wrote that some unusual movement of equipment and forces was recorded on Russia's western flank. The publication also referred to videos that were posted on the internet showing Russian trains and convoys transporting military hardware to the country's southern and western regions. Politico wrote that the photos were taken by Maxar Technologies on November 1st. So this is confirmed, folks, that this equipment is still there and that these troops are there as well, and they're getting ready to move potentially on Ukraine. I don't think that Putin is going to repeat this exercise of just posturing. I think, he's getting ready to make a move. As I said, the last thing that Vladimir Putin wants is for the Ukraine to join NATO, because then they'll have to contend with NATO forces. And he's essentially betting that the United States will do absolutely nothing should he decide to invade and take over the Ukraine. In addition, citing data from the British publication Jane's, which specializes in military issues, the newspaper reported that the military hardware of Russia's 4th Panzer Division was being moved closer to the border with Ukraine to the areas near the cities of Kursk and Bryansk. According to the Financial Times, Western intelligence officials said Russia was highly likely to go for another round of destabilization in Ukraine this winter after Moscow amassed more than 90,000 troops near its border. Folks, the situation is a fluid situation, and quite frankly, it's a very tense situation. I know this is very far from the United States, but this situation could potentially involve the U.S. if they end up going to war. But I just wanted to bring you this update on what's happening across the ocean in between Ukraine and Russia. This certainly is a very tense situation that needs to be taken seriously, and I will be reporting on it as events transpire. But thank you so much for coming along with me to this very important update. Please remember to like, to comment, to share, and of course to subscribe. And until the next update, God bless.